All right, guys, welcome. This is going to be for apprentices who are getting into the plumbing trade, who want to know what they need to start off with. And I'm going to run you through the things that I recommend to get starting, and the things you can add a little bit later. But I'm going to keep it real with you, man. There's some things you can go cheap on, and then there's some things I'm going to recommend not going cheap on. Before we talk about any sort of tool, the thing you got to remember, the first tool that you're going to need is a bag. So you're going to want to talk first with your journeyman. You're going to want to see first what kind of space you have on the van. What kind of space is he going to let you bring on the van? These two I wouldn't recommend getting right out the gate. You know, things like these, they're going to be big. They may take up some space on the journeyman's truck, and you may not be happy about that. And you're not going to have this thing filled out starting out with. So I recommend these as you start getting further into your career as a plumber. You know, you can upgrade into these higher quality bags. When you're starting out, you're going to be looking for this type of stuff. This is what I recommend getting right out the gate. You can pick up a bag from Home Depot similar to this. I think this is a 12-inch bag. You could go a little bit bigger, but it's going to be small enough for you to throw on and off in the van. It's not going to take up a lot of space, which your journeyman's going to be happy about. These bags, when you outgrow them, you're still going to use these. So as you progress in your career, you're going to find stuff to keep in here. And like for me right now, I'm using this bag with some other bags that have different tools and stuff that just kind of set in here. This isn't going to be wasted. You're going to end up using this in the future. So I recommend starting with this. And the basic tools that we're going to run through today are all going to be able to fit in here. After you outgrow that, or if there is space, you can go with this bucket caddy. These are the two types of things that I started off with when I started my apprenticeship. I started with a small bag like this, and then as I got my pipe wrenches and bigger items, I got the bucket because it was easy for me to pull on, pull off, and it had plenty of space to throw tools that I was accumulating. It's really affordable. I mean, you literally just buy a bucket, 5-gallon bucket, and then this cloth that inserts. You have holes all on the sides, and you have holes all on the inside. So you have a lot of space, and then you can dump all of your big stuff right here in the center. You know what I mean? These are the two things that should run you for a good period of time. So start with this guy, and then once you get your pipe wrenches and stuff, move up to this guy here. So that's number one. Pick a good bag. That's what I recommend right there, bro. Those two. I have all of the tools here in this bag. All of the tools starting out fit in this 12-inch bag, okay? So these are going to be tools, say you just are getting ready to start your apprenticeship, you're going to be a helper, you just got the job, you're going to be riding in a van with maybe one journeyman, or you're going to be rotating, and you want to know what to get. Everything is going to be basics here, and then depending on how much money you're going to spend out the gate and what you're doing, we'll have another section of things you can add that are going to help complement as you're learning and getting your hands-on experience. So in the bag first, we are going to start with pliers. These pliers are the only thing that I am going to really recommend spending money on, okay? So these are Knipex Cobras. These are probably the best set of pliers money can buy. The reason why I recommend these is for a few different reasons. One reason is these are extremely thin. So when you're going in and you got to hold back up and you're wrenching, how thin it is, you're going to be able to get real close up to the wall. Whereas your standard plier, like with Douglas, Wilder, Channel Lock, all of the other brands, they're a lot thicker. So you're going to be limited when you're in very tight situations. You're going to be limited on that, where with these, you're going to have very minimal space to get in. This style too of Cobra have the ability to grip and lock. You're not going to find a better plier that can grip. These can grip in such a way where if you were to put pressure on and then let off the handle, they'll stay in position. And I'll insert the clip right here so you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that just stayed in place. This is why these are the best, dude.
These are the ones I recommend. You could go cheaper if you're on a budget, but you're going to be using these regularly. This is going to be the #1 tool in your tool bag. You're not going to use any other tool more than these. So for that reason, I recommend getting a high quality one. So they make a kit. You don't need 4 starting out. I do recommend getting these 2 here. So you're going to want a 12-inch and a 10-inch. And these will pretty much carry you through for a long time, man. It's ideal to have, you know, 2 12s and 2 10s. But again, if you don't have the money, because these are expensive, you can get away with just these 2 here. And they sell a set for these 2. I don't recommend, there's a style of the Cobras, which it's actually this style, that allows you to quickly change. But what happens is over time is it wears and it becomes unstable to where it doesn't lock anymore and it slides when you're not wanting it to slide, which can be an issue because then at that point the locking mechanism isn't doing the peak of what it's supposed to be doing, and you're constantly having to readjust and readjust. Whereas the basic Cobras, once you lock in where you're at, you're good. So I recommend the basic Cobras. Next thing is a 6-in-1. When you're starting out, this is actually an 11-in-1, like 11 different attachments. So you have a flathead, a Phillips, a nut driver, another size nut driver, another size Phillips. I mean, you get the point here, right? The reason why I was using this one over the other one is back when I used to plumb in Texas, I did a lot of sewer isolation. And with sewer isolation, you have test balls, and this came with a Schrader valve attachment. And I use this thing a lot because of the Schrader valve. Out here in California, I'm not really doing that type of testing because we're not making slab repairs as often. So you don't really need to spend the money to do an 11-in-1. You can get away with like the Home Depot Husky or even the HD brand. They sell 6-in-1s for like $2. So I do recommend, like, you don't even need anything this expensive. I think this is like $16. When you're first starting out, just get the cheap 6-in-1. You're probably going to lose it. You're probably going to lose the bits. Don't spend a lot of money on this. Just get something cheap, Harbor Freight, Home Depot, for a couple dollars. But you're going to use this thing a lot. You're going to use this, you know, not just obviously for screws and for prying with your flathead, but you're going to use the nut drivers for cranking hose clamps and stuff like that. So don't worry about spending a lot of money. You can go cheap, but you're going to want a 6-in-1, right? The next thing is going to be crescent wrenches. Now this is the brand Crescent Wrench. Crescent Wrench is a name, kind of comes synonymous with the tool, kind of the same way as Kleenex is become synonymous with tissue, or you may have heard channel locks or channies. You know, channies are kind of slang now for this style of plier. It's the same thing with this. This is an adjustable wrench, but everyone will call these crescent wrenches because that's what they're known for, adjustable crescent wrenches. But this is the brand. Again, with these, you're going to use these for finish work. You know, when you're taking off a shower head and needing to install a shower head, finishes like at the lavs, showers, or if you're working with brass and you don't want to mar, or if you don't want to strip out the brass, because brass is a pretty soft metal. If you wrench on it too much, you actually can wear the flat surfaces of it. So you'll want to use a crescent wrench, you know, to prevent that marring from taking place. This one, it doesn't really matter about the brand. You can go with any brand. I actually recently purchased these because I had a set of Milwaukee's, but I didn't know what I did with them. I set them off somewhere. I may have even accidentally thrown them away, I don't know, but they disappeared and I needed a new set. You'll want a set. You'll want a small set for small items, and then a bigger set that will give you a little bit more leverage to get things done. Now, you may have seen me use these, right? This is the same concept here, except this is a plier, right? It's a smooth jaw plier. These are good for fittings when you're wrenching stuff together. This is going to come way later in your plumbing journey. I wouldn't rush to buy these. This is going to solve this, and this is actually better for when you're trying to break something open. You're going to have a lot more strength and leverage when you're wrenching down, whereas with this guy, when you're trying to wrench, the grip here is wider, and the strength of the grip along with pushing down, or you know, as you're trying to break it free, I feel like it's not as strong, whereas the leverage you can get with a solid grip on here, in my opinion, in my experience, this has been a lot more effective and beneficial. So you don't need these right away. These are going to come way later down the road. They're great to have, but you're not going to need this out the gate. This is like a luxury thing that you'll use periodically. Here's a 10-inch, and here's a 6-inch. These are going to get you through in the beginning, especially as an apprentice. Anything bigger than this, your journeyman's going to have. Your journeyman should be handing you something going, hey, you know, go take care of this. Same thing with pipe wrenches. There will come a time when you're going to want your own, but for big things, if he's giving you the ability to do it, he's probably going to watch you do it, and he's probably going to let you use that tool to do it. So start with these, and I'm telling you, these will take you far. I think these combo was like 30 bucks. Again, you don't need to get expensive one of these. You can go to Harbor Freight, Home Depot, get Husky, or get the Harbor Freight brand, and they'll do just fine, especially in the beginning. I wouldn't worry too much about these. The next thing is a cutter. This is going to be your plastic cutter. You're going to get different sizes as you progress in your career. I would probably start off with this size. So this size is in 1 5/8. You can see that. All right, 1 5/8. The reason why I recommend this is you're going to be able to get a lot of pipe cut. You're going to be able to do your PEX if you're working with PEX, PVC to, you know, the small sizes at least, without using a Sawzall. You're also going to be able to cut tubular with this. Now, tubular will be a little bit different. You don't just crank this all the way down. You're going to have to, like, you know, cut and rotate, but there's enough gap here to get the tubular in for you to get a proper cut. You know, now I do carry a smaller size, which we'll get into in the next section. As you've gotten your basics and you're looking to grow your bag, We'll get into that, but starting out, you're gonna want to try to get the most bang for your buck and to cover the widest range you can with your tools, because you want to stretch your dollar as far as you can, right? That's going to be these guys. Now you don't need to go Ridgid. I do like the Ridgid brand. Ridgid, they make solid hand tools. I'm telling you, their hand tools are really amazing. They make really good hand tools. Obviously they make great sewer equipment too, but I am really impressed with their hand tools. So if you go with Ridgid, you can do that, but these are expensive. Starting out, you don't necessarily need to get these. Most of the brands you get, you can replace these blades. Even with the Huskies, you can replace the blades. So you just get whatever in your budget. But yeah, I recommend this guy. All right, next on the list is going to be a level. As a plumber, we plumb, which means plumb, we want things level, and you can't have things level without something to guide you on what is level. I like this Empire brand. The reason why I have grown to love this model of level is for this right here. So when you're looking at code and you're learning how to plumb drains, you have to have so much of fall per foot. 1.5 inch, 2 inch, anything 2 inch and under needs to be 1/4 of an inch per foot of fall. And then in some states, it's 1/8 of an inch as you increase into 3 and 4 inch pipe, like in Texas. But these actually have, I don't know if you can see it here. It tells you 1/8, 1/4, 3/8, half. It'll tell you the size of how much per foot you have of fall. And the range, because it's all engineering and science when it comes to gravity systems, is it has to be between either that 1/8 or 1/4 to 1/2 inch. It can't be anything over a half inch per foot of fall. Anything after that, you could potentially run into problems. And I like that because it's giving you the actual gauge, so you don't have to guess of where you're at. You could actually get pretty precise. I do recommend that. This is also another one that's pretty cool that I got. It allows you to kind of change the positions here. So you can see here that I was looking for something at a 90 degree to get that straight. But you can change this, and you can make it at any degree that you're looking to get. It's got magnets, it's small. It's a pretty good little level. So if you're looking for a small level to get, you can get this guy. But if you were to buy just one of these, probably recommend this starting out with. All right, next thing is tape. 25 foot should carry you through. Okay, you don't get anything less than that starting off. You could get like 35 if you wanted to. It's a little bit bigger, but 25 feet is pretty much going to carry you. I've had 25 foot tapes my entire career. I've never not been able to do something with a 25 foot. So that's what I recommend getting. Still to this day, I know how to read fractions. You might not know yet, but it's convenient to get these when they have the lines here, and it'll actually tell you the fractions. It makes it very easy when your journeyman tells you, hey, I need you to cut a piece of PVC 3 1/4 inches. It's obviously good to learn, but it's helpful when you have this to where you can quickly take it, mark, and then cut. There's no guessing, there's no confusion. It's just straight up, it's clear. It's going to get you efficient, and that's what your journeyman's really going to appreciate, when you can be quick and efficient. It's going to take time, but this will help you learn the difference. And again, you can go with any brand. I got the Milwaukee. I like this because it's the auto click, the auto lock. Pretty much you just pull it and it stays. You don't have to click anything down, and then when I want to retract it, you just hit the button and it zooms in. This is probably one of my favorite tape measures, and I got all different types. I got rugged ones. This has been my favorite in the field so far, so I recommend this guy to get, but you can get whatever brand you want. Next one we got on here are knives. You're gonna need a good knife. When I started in the trade, I started with a regular style box cutter. With this, they're replaceable razors, and you can buy a set of razors. Depending on the company that you're working for, they'll probably supply razors. These are great for cutting open boxes and stuff like that. Eventually, I went from a regular flip razor to this guy, which is both a razor and then there's like a screwdriver attachment here. You got the Phillips, you got the flathead, and then this acts as a nut driver too. This served me pretty well, where I was able to use this for leverage of getting to end of stuff, and obviously the razors for cutting open boxes. This is a good choice, and I probably would maybe even recommend to go with this one starting off with. This is what I'm using now. This is more of like a standard style knife. I ended up choosing this one as my primary over this guy. It was mainly because of how rigid and stiff the blade is. When I'm trying to get into toilets and I'm trying to remove the silicone caulking, I'm able to really dig in, where sometimes I feel like the knife or the blade wasn't as good. I could also use this to like leverage stuff up and get it out of crevices, where depending on what I was trying to leverage, this would snap, the blade would chip. And I just have become a fan of this guy, but you can get away with either or. It's all preference. This you either have to replace or knife sharpen to get it back to what it was, whereas this one, you just buy your blades, discard the blades appropriately, and then put in a new blade. So, but you're gonna need one of these. Your journeyman is gonna tell you to open something up or cut something. You're gonna need to be able to do that. So you can go with any brand. Again, I'm rocking Milwaukee, but you're gonna need a knife. So make sure to pick a good knife. And last but not least is a marker. You're gonna need writing instruments. It'd probably be good to have a marker and a pen in your bag. So when your journeyman tells you, hey, I need you to cut blah, 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 and you're taking your measurements, you're gonna need something to mark. You may not need to buy these. The place that you're working at may have a handful of stock. You wanna make sure that these are in your bag. They're easy to lose, they're easy to forget. You want to make sure you have a few in your bag, because you're going to need to write, you're going to need to mark for when you take cuts. You may have to write something down as far as measurements are concerned, or a list of material. You need one of these. All right, so these are the basics of what you're going to be needing as you get into the trade. Again, these tools are going to be the bread and butter of your trade. You're going to use these tools frequently and often. Again, it's always best if you can get the higher quality of tool, but in the beginning that doesn't really matter. And as you can see, we have this small little guy. And you still got room for your specialty stuff, right? Still got room. So now let's look at some of the secondary stuff. First thing we're going to look at after you have your foundations, some of these still may be considered a foundational thing, but depending on, in the very beginning, you may not be needing it right out the gate, but it's kind of in that weird gray area. That's going to be Allen wrenches. Now you can get a higher quality brand like the Weha or the Wera. You could go cheaper like with the Husky brand, but you're going to want to make sure to have a good set. The higher quality, the less likely you're going to be stripping out the set screws, or at least rounding out the wrenches. I like these ones because it's got this ball head on here, which allows me to get in at weird angles, and it sets in at an angle, and then I can wrench out of it. It doesn't need to be perfectly straight, whereas when you're working with a flat part, that actually has to be straight in, otherwise you can run the risk of stripping that out. These have been very helpful since I've got them, and you're gonna need a set as a service plumber. Even, I mean, new construction, if you're setting fixtures, you're probably gonna need it periodically. You wouldn't need as good of a brand, but if you're working in service, you're gonna want a higher quality, but don't worry about getting that in the beginning. You may need both standard and metric. I recommend getting both. All right, the next set are long screwdrivers. Milwaukee made a set that had both the Phillips and the flathead. I really like this set. This is the set I recommend. It allows you to hammer, pretty much use as a pick. The other one could be used as a chisel, the flathead. There are some cases where you need the long screw, depending on the type of shower you might be working on, or you know, if you're working on a water heater. Like this is Reams that they ended up hooking me up with way back when I did a training with them. It's magnetized, but sometimes you need that length to get in there to get a screw out that might be buried in electronics or things of that nature, that your 6-in-1 isn't going to work. You know, it might be too stubby here to fit in to an area to get out that screw that's in the shower or whatever. So there's gonna come times when you need a long screwdriver, and so for that reason, it's good to get these. So again, for a long period of time, I just had this and the flathead, and it got me a long way for a long time. So I recommend one of these. Next thing are Needlenose pliers. Needlenose pliers are extremely important. Like today, I was working on a faucet and the Allen wrench flew out of my hand into the toilet, and I had to pull it out, and I actually recorded some of it, so take a look. Yeah, that just happened, bro. Good grief. That's exactly why you might need Needlenose pliers. Now, you also may need Needlenose pliers to get into grip. So you have a couple different options here. I have a variety of different styles. Initially, I had a small pair and an extended pair. This one here is by Crescent. You can see how it opens up. It limits the amount of space. You know, like if you're struggling to get into an area and you can't open this up to the fullest extent, this is going to allow you to get really wide without running into interference because of this mechanism. So for that reason, I do recommend, if you need a long pair, to get this long pair. Usually 8 times out of 10, this is gonna get me through. You know, these are good. These are good for like getting stuff out of disposals. You know, when things get clogged, you have a little bit more depth to get in to grip it out. This is gonna be for smaller things. You know, like if you're pulling out the ring on a mowing shower or something like that, these are gonna be good. All right, next thing are nut drivers. There's a few different varieties here. I started off with these guys. It's a Raptor brand. You can get a set of them at Ferguson. It really doesn't matter about the brand. What really matters about a good nut driver is how hollow the shaft is, okay? You're gonna wanna use these mainly for closet bolts, for toilet bolts, anything with a bolt to where you're not having to cut right out the gate to tighten up. You want to be able to get in there and wrench things down without having to get cut. Now these are limited. I ended up switching over to Milwaukee's because it's completely hollow. See that? It's completely hollow. So when I'm wrenching, you know, extended bolts down to tighten up, or on a tank to bolt, I mean, I don't have to cut. I got nothing to worry about, because even all thread, you know, you can sit all thread all the way through here and not have an issue. So because of that, I do recommend these. This ended up back into my tool bag because I lost the size, so I gotta buy a new one for these. The two basic common sizes that I keep on my bag, apart from this guy for the long shanks, hollow shafts, are going to be a 1/2 inch and 7/16. So 7/16 are going to be for the 1/4 inch bolts, and then the 1/2 are going to be for those 5/16 bolts. If you buy these in the sets, the set that it comes with, you'll pretty much have all your bases covered for like tank to bolt kits and stuff like that. These are really good to have. This is kind of an extra thing you can get. This has come in handy more than I can count because of this impact rated connection. I've been able to add different attachments onto here and thread and used a wrench as a base that normally I wouldn't have been able to do. But this is a different size nut driver. This kind of takes the place of all of the different sizes that 11-in-1 has, but it does have a few different bigger sizes there. This is limited. I would recommend getting this after you've gotten these sizes, okay? So after you've gotten these sizes in your tool bag, at that point, I would maybe consider getting this guy. Next thing is a little hacksaw, dude. Now, because I am in control of the jobs that I do, I rarely use this anymore because I use a certain type of bolt cap to where I don't have to cut closet bolts anymore. But you're gonna need this randomly. So when your journeyman tells you to cut the bolts and put the caps onto a toilet, you're gonna need a little saw. Get one that you can replace the blade with and you'll be golden. But you're gonna need one of these in your bag. All right, service plumbers. This is a specialty tool that probably should go on a top 10 specialty list, but this is your angle stop remover, right? You have your 3/8 thread, your 1/2 inch thread. This goes on top of the angle stop. And then you have here for that 1/2 inch nut, that's on the back side of compression stops. And then this is that 3/8 top part if you ever need that. The reason why I recommend these over other removers is because of the leverage you can get off these grips. It's with the leverage and how these lock in, it makes some of the tightest compression fittings be able to loosen up. I have yet to really have a problem with these. There have been times where I've had them, it was so stiff that I had them like that, and then I used my big pair of pliers and actually cranked the two together and got stuff free. So if you are doing a lot of service and you're doing a lot of angle stops, this thing will last you an extremely long time. They sell this as a kit. They also sell them separately. So when this starts to wear, which it eventually will, you don't need to replace the whole set. You can just get this guy and keep using the threaded piece here. Same topic as angle stops. You're gonna need a removal tool. This removal tool is probably the best removal tool out of the bunch because this removal tool will allow you to cut snap the ring and pull that off. Whereas this is limited to just pulling off if you're like me in an area where you run into a lot of hard over cinched ferrules. These can disfigure the pipe. It'll disform the pipe to where you have to cut it to get a new ring back on if that's your jam. And I think there's also better removal tools. I can't tell you how many times, like, this is cool when they're nice and light, but I wouldn't waste your money on this. I mean, at one point I really liked it, but I'm actually not a big fan of this anymore. I feel like this is more gimmicky than anything. It does an all right job, but I think there are better tools. This is a better tool in my opinion. And then the Pasco, and there's other brands that will pull off the remover that do a better job and less friction on the hand. You can use cranks or tools. They're just better. There's better options than this. This looks cool. It looks simple, but I constantly have pinched my hand in here from hard. It's just, they're not that great. All right, I'm gonna be real with you, man. So if I were to get one, I'd get this guy. You can get this one on Amazon. All right, you're gonna need a new Basin wrench. Okay, this is a unique Basin wrench here. This is actually a socket extension. Pipe Vise makes this adapter Basin wrench to where you can put adaptions on here, so you can get real good leverage. You can put different sizes depending on how much space you need. There will come times when you need this, when you're in tight areas on a wall, when you're underneath the faucet. When you need one of these, you really need one of these, and you need it to work. Ridgid is a great brand. I had the Ridgid one for a long period of time. It served me well for a lot of years. I recently had gone over to this one. I like the ability of being able to swap these out. I could put a wrench on here. I could put tools on here if I needed to. I could put an impact. You know, if you saw one of my videos recently, you saw me do that, where I put an impact drill and was able to get a hose bib off a really tight space in a wall cavity. So I do recommend the Pipe Vise one. You can order it through their website. It's probably going to be the best option in my opinion, but if that's not in your price budget, or you're not willing to wait to get something shipped, go to Home Depot and get Ridgid. That's a great brand, and it'll last you a good amount of time. It'll last you years. All right. Now these are two items that, after, you know, we talked about that bigger cutter. This is what I use for tubular pretty exclusively. It's like 20 bucks. But this thing lasts so long. It makes nice clean cuts on the tubular. You have 1.5 inch, 1.25 inch. I also like it too because when you make the cuts, it will chamfer the pipe. It makes it beveled on the outside. And as gimmicky as this may look, it makes cutting tubular simple, fast, and you don't have to worry about deburring. Again, this isn't like a necessary thing. This is more of like a luxury thing, but I think it's cheap enough to where you can get nice, easy, clean cuts off tubular without the risk of it cracking, and just having the overall experience good. If you use a lot of tubular, you might be in an area where you hard pipe all the drains underneath the sink. At that point, this is not gonna, you're not gonna use this at all. You have no business with this. But for those of you who work with tubular, I do recommend this. I've had this one for probably 3 years now, and it's still cutting good. And I haven't needed to replace it, shockingly. So I do recommend the Ridgid brand. This is the small one that I carry now. So because I cut my tubular with this guy, I like to carry this smaller one for plastic piping. So if I'm cutting PEX, if I'm cutting hose tubing for disposals, things like that, this is the one I like. It makes it easy. It's not a ratchet, it's just a smooth cut. Recommend getting this guy for sure. You don't really need this till way later. If you have that ratcheter, that's great. You can get away with that, but I would get this guy, right? And lastly, a scraper. Okay, tons of different scrapers out there. You're gonna want this for cleaning up those toilet caulkings, at kitchen sinks and faucets. It's always good to have a little scraper, and when your journeyman tells you, hey, I need you to clean this up and get it prepped for us putting whatever on, you're gonna want one. They're cheap, they're easy to replace, and you're gonna be thankful you have this little guy. It's one of those small little things where it's like, heck yeah, man, I'm stoked I got it. So pick up a little scraper. You can get it from, you know, Home Depot, I think Harbor Freight, Ace Hardware, anywhere. Any hardware store are going to have these. So make sure to pick one of these up. Now, you're about to see me load up, okay? All the tools I showed you. See that, dude? Oh, that's split a little bit, but I could have made that tighter. You see, all those fit in this little bag, man. This little bag and all those tools, it's going to take you a far way. It's going to take you a long way. So I recommend getting this little bag to begin and start loading this guy up. And then the one thing that I did not mention yet that I'm saving for now, right now, is when you would transition from this bag into the bucket. And that's going to be for when you get your pipe wrenches. Pipe wrenches, like the pliers, you're going to want to not go cheap, okay? So I've had these cheap ones fail over time where they wouldn't grip right. These would get stripped out. They just weren't good. And when you need a pipe wrench, you need a pipe wrench, right? And it's probably in a situation where only a pipe wrench is going to solve your problem, and you're going to need that thing to work. So because of that, don't waste your money on cheap pipe wrenches. Spend the money when you're ready and get pipe wrenches that are going to last you and that are going to be reliable. Now, I do recommend the aluminum. They're going to be good for lifting. It's not going to be as heavy. You're going to get a lot of jobs accomplished with these. I would recommend maybe one steel. What's good about the steel is because it's heavy, it's going to add additional weight for leverage when you're dealing with a stuck fitting, and you need as much leverage and power as you can to kind of break that free. That's where the steel comes in handy. You'll need it periodically, but for the most part, I do recommend getting aluminum. Now, if you were to start, I probably would start with, you know, a 14 and an 18, and then when you're ready, get your 2 18s, 2 14s, and then you can build on as you need. You can get the bigger 24s and all of that. So, but I would start with like that set right there, okay? Start with that, and then you can work up from there. But make sure, don't get the cheap ones, man, because when you need a pipe wrench, you really need a pipe wrench. There's a reason why you need it, and you're gonna need it to be reliable. All right, that's that. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the video. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to try to answer any questions you got. I hope this video was helpful, kept it real for you, and let me know if I can help you in any way. All right, be easy, man.